Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Art My Medicine podcast, during which I have many wonderful people who share my passion for art and mental health. My name is Dorota. I am an artist, but I am a reborn artist, meaning that I have turned to art after some massive mental health breakdown and never stopped. So I'm inviting always to my show people who are creative, who embrace that passion, but also those who use art to help themselves and help others to understand mental health and heal themselves. So today I have amazing guests, a Becky Collective, and Jack is with us. And I will let Jack to tell us a little bit about himself.
Okay. Right. So I'm Jack. I have D.I.D, which is probably the thing that most people are sort of like going, oh, Becky Newell Collective, what's that? So D.I.D stands for Dissociative Identity Disorder, which some people may know as multiple personality disorder, but that was something that was given up quite a long time ago, thank heavens. The thing that people will probably know it most, I mean, the reason why that's people recognize it is because people have several personalities all encapsulated in one body. So lots of completely different but completely whole personalities. So as I'm presenting to you today, a fully rounded, hello, I'm Jack, personality, and likewise I've got 11 other personalities, all of whom have complete lives, who are completely happy and lovely people, but they're completely separate, and we happen to share this body. But the reason why it's a really good thing that they've changed the name is that it's not just about having multiple personalities. There's a huge amount more that goes with it. So I paint, Fee paints, LB paints, Tom sometimes paints, and I teach. I also advocate for people with D.I.D and try and raise awareness as well. So they're things that I do. I write. I have lots of great friends and do. That's it. In a nutshell.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I can hear that all of you are so creative. There are different genres that you touch. Obviously there is some poetry, some fine arts.
Yeah.
So how did you turn to art? Have you always been artistic?
Yeah, we have. So Becky, who is has not been present. It's kind of like hard. I mean, I don't have all the answers to even myself, right? So
who has mental health illness? You know what I mean?
Well, please pass them over. So Becky, who was present for a lot of the time, was always painting right from when, if I say we, from when we were very little, and identified as an artist from when we were very little. My father was a very good artist, actually, and I was fortunate actually to be taught by him from when I was very small. And so by the time I was like 5 or 6, I was able to do watercolor washes very well. I was copying his work. He was teaching me. He was quite strict about teaching me. So it was technicalities, which actually put me in really good stead. So always painted. And I was fortunate enough as well to have very good teachers. But I soon learned that I could put symbolism into my work. And with retrospect, I can very much see that it was Fee that worked out we could put symbolism into our work. And Becky, then we were brought up in a very Christian household, and it kind of like seemed a natural process to do Christian artwork, to express, and it was Becky that did that and expressed our Christian faith through artwork, and actually got a fair amount of success through our Christian artwork. And so worked for a company called Veritas that did the Christian artwork and you know, that was great. Did quite a few exhibitions and all that sort of thing, and taught as well. We taught in sort of like a women's support centre, and did quite a few school residencies, all that sort of thing. And then in 2001, things went a bit pear-shaped for me, and I suddenly started getting flashbacks. I was already teaching adults. I already had my own company, in terms of Becky was running that company. And I suddenly, out of the blue, started getting these flashbacks, which were they were alien, entirely alien. They were like shards of a mirror, sort of just interrupting my life. And they didn't make sense. They were just like totally mad. Fortunately, fortunately, unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, my sister had experienced the same, so like 15 years prior, had never told me what she had seen or what she had experienced, but had told me that, you know, that she was suffering from complex PTSD. So it was really fortunate for me that I was able to talk to her about that. And she was able to tell me, no, you know, this is what you're seeing is true. This is true. So it kind of like grounded it. And I think I always knew, you know, art has always been my first language, you know, and I guess in beginning to use it in a slightly different way, for me, Jack, it became something that enabled me. I have always found it, even to the point, and I think trauma is something that does this. You can't actually physically get the words out often about something that is truly traumatic in your life, and being able to paint it out, even if you can't actually paint the actual incident or the actual thing, then you can paint some kind of something that expresses it.
Indeed.
You can even work out, you know, often I would go to my canvas with a question mark of some sort, you know, just not being able to, it's a way of grounding the question.
Yeah.
And being able to somehow put together the language that you needed to be able to communicate it to somebody else. Does that make sense?
Oh, well, it makes perfect sense, because I even relate in my story to trapping demons on the paper, because you know, mental health states and states of mind are very abstract. It's like you feel it, but like you said, you can't really articulate it.
Yeah.
Right? It's so bizarre in terms of, you know, how it looks in our heads. So I find painting that I can give it a form. Yes. I can give it a voice. Therefore, it stops a bit nagging me in my head. Yeah. And I very often refer to it, trapping demons on the paper. And then, and then either, you know, it's okay to look at the demon, but even if it's not, I can just kill it by shredding the paper. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's a perfect sense. And this is part of the healing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there are two things in response to that. I think anybody can find it, absolutely anybody, whether they've got an obvious mental health, you know, difficulty or not. I think anybody can find a voice in art, because everybody's got something that they need to process. Absolutely everybody. I've never met anybody who hasn't got something that's worth, you know, everybody's got a voice, and that's precious, you know, and so art gives you that ability to be able to express that voice. So I think that's really important. But I also think that for me personally, it was the process as much as the actual image. It was actually trying to wrangle with how do I put, what do I actually want on the canvas, how am I, it was the justifying things that were actually going to go on the canvas as much as actually the painting, you know.
Yeah.
And the physical, actually, you know, I got bigger with my paintings, so the actual movement, you know, having felt so trapped and so unable, doing something big that was actually required movement was another thing that was relevant, I think.
Exactly. And you mentioned the process. And I always say to people, because many people say, oh, I am not artistic, you know, I can't paint. It's like, you don't need
Not
to
true.
paint, know how to paint or be an artist or paint another Mona Lisa. You know, there is one, that's enough.
Yeah.
But the process itself, I have moments when, you know, I approach the medium in a very calm way, but I have moments, I have anger issues that I just splash, scribble and abuse the material in front of me to take that out. And this what helps me, because after that process, no matter if I achieved nice outcome or not, I feel that I let it out.
Yeah.
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 Have you mentioned about trauma as well? And we know that your condition is associated with severe trauma.
Yeah.
If you are willing to tell us a little bit about how it is correlated with D.I.D.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, and I know it's not the same for everybody with D.I.D, but you know, but very many people, it can be linked with when you have D.I.D. I was ritually abused, and that's something that that means it was an ongoing thing, right? I was born into a family that was ritually abusive, so it was something that happened. I was trained right from when I was born, until I left home. You know, that is the truth of it. And you know, that seems such an abstract thing. And ritual abuse or satanic ritual abuse is something that, and I think this is one of the things that adds to it, is that it's in itself is something that so many people just either deny, they don't believe in. There are such powerful organizations that try and continue its protection. You know, there is so much to tell you. You know, you are told right from when you are a child, you are a liar, nobody will believe you.
Of course.
You must never speak, you will die if you say anything. You know, and the proof is there. You have seen people die. So when you're an adult, and because of the trauma, it's, you know, because of the trauma, all of these things have happened, you know, it's all locked in, you know, your brain. And so it's very unlikely, and it's very, very common for people to then remember when they're older. So it's a very abstract memory for you to have. It comes out of the blue. And you may have lived with other things. Like I lived with really, really severe migraine for a very long time and had no clue that had anything to do with trauma. But in fact, you know, as soon as I started dealing with all of this, my migraines have gone. You know, and
Wow.
I was disabled with migraine, you know. Yeah, I mean, ritual abuse, if you don't know anything about ritual abuse, which very few people do, it's organized, sadistic in nature. It's practiced. Do you want me to tell you about this? Is this, you know, is
Yeah,
this
of
okay for me to
course.
tell you
Yeah,
about
well,
this?
there is no shame in it, so I don't think that
There
we should restrain.
absolutely
Yeah.
isn't, and people do really need to understand about it. So yeah, it's organized, it's sadistic in nature. I'm going to read this because I wrote this beforehand so that I, you know, was clear about it. Its practices include torture, bestiality, cannibalism, murder, as well as forcing children into prostitution and pornography in the home and for organised rituals and ceremonies. So it's extremely structured and it's protected. So that's what you're talking about. And currently there are no specific laws against that. So you can't actually prosecute somebody for that specifically. And and you cannot use D.I.D as evidence. And yet,
Oh my God.
And yet extreme trauma is the only way that you can get D.I.D. It's evidenced. It's
Of
evidence.
course.
There's scientific, there's MRIs, CT scans, there's doctors that have all this evidence to say you
Of
can only
course.
get
Well,
D.I.D. by
there is no surprise there. It's like when you were listing that, factors that include ritual abuse, I had shivers in my body. And then I imagined the little being, a baby, a child, being in the middle of that. Is like, if anybody has a stone to throw towards a D.I.D, better they throw it my way and I will throw it back. Because it's like, how would you expect from the child growing in an environment like that not to have certain issues and trauma and flashbacks and live happy life and sing joy songs?
I think when I think this is the thing, actually, is very often, for me, and I am saying this is purely for me, Dorota, because not everybody who has D.I.D has been ritually abused. I mean, I'll make that very, very clear. Okay. Yep.
But they had some severe trauma. There is no question about it. We don't know what kind.
It has to be repetitive, long-term trauma at a time in their lives when their personality is being developed. That part of their brain is being developed. So that's around 4 or 5 age group. But it has to be overwhelming and life-threatening. When you know that's, and we bandy these things around. I think we've become so numb to trauma, and trauma is such a phrase at the moment, isn't it? But actually, when you're looking at the levels of trauma, then you're talking about you're that they're hardly perceivable, are they? Even to me, it's taken, I'm 7 years into therapy and I'm still struggling to really grasp, to really be able to, you were talking about being able to throw paint at a canvas. I'm still struggling to get there, to be able to get, get in touch with that, because it's so overwhelming. How do you put the two together? I'm not sure. I don't know how to put the two together. It's so surreal and painful. I hate that word, pain, when people sort of say painful. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. That's the thing. It's so many things.
You use the phrase at the beginning that I think fits very well, that there are shards of broken mirror there. Which are sharp, which reflect, weirdly everything that is around us. And I think this is beautiful symbolism that reflect D.I.D very well. So when it all started, because you said you are 7 years into therapy, so how it occurred to you that you have D.I.D?
Well, I had a lovely friend. I could not have been more fortunate. I had a lovely friend who happened to be a psychiatrist who I was incredibly close to, and she, as soon as complex PTSD kicked in, she recognized it and went to and also recognized that actually this was something different to my father abusing me at home, or and that this was something different, and she made it her business to be about as supportive as any friend ever could be. And we were just, in actual fact, we were talking about something completely different this one day. And I said to her, and all my life, you know, I think we just did it absolutely subconsciously, I guess. I have no clue. But I don't know why we let the cat out of the bag that day. But, and I just said, said to her, yeah, but then you just switch, don't you? And
Okay.
and she went, what do you mean? I went, yeah, but then you just kind of like switch to your other self, don't you? And she was like, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. You know, and it kind of like, you know, it just suddenly made everything make sense. You know, I always had lost time. You know, I always had, you know, my handwriting had always been very specifically different. I had always been lambasted by people because I couldn't be consistent on anything. Every year my New Year's resolution was to try and be consistent. You know, every you know, I would sometimes struggle to remember my name. When I was a student, I used to have a big poster on my wall saying, your name is, this is where you live. You know, it was when it suddenly made everything make sense. It was really weird. I mean, I did a lot of tests and things with her, you know, to make sure that you know, that we weren't, you know, going off piste, but it was extraordinarily evident then. You know, and it wasn't outside voices telling me to do X, Y, and Z. We are we are separate, and it's very different.
Well, you know, I had pleasure to attend one of your exhibitions where I met you for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was ages ago.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago now.
Yeah. And I can, you know, I was sure that there were more than 2 artists exhibiting. And I remember that I was like, when I was reading later that, you know, it was Becky Collective, all of it, I was like looking at it, and it's like, there is such a distinctive difference in style, voice, you know, the message. It's so, you know, people really need to see it to understand, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think often that's one of the things. I mean, I'm you know, I'm pushed out front as the, or perhaps I push myself out front, I don't know. I mean, as a collective, you know, I'm pushed out front as the, you know, fine artist, you know. But in actual fact, Fee's work, Fee has a very different motivation. You know, Fee, whereas I will, you know, a lot of my work comes from, in actual fact, my therapist's name is Jo. You know, she is like part of the family, you know, in terms of, you know, she is the rock to us. And much of my work is actually a conversation with Jo. You know, it's because much of it is that question mark of identity, of struggling with identity, of how to deal with all the other shit apart from being part of a multiple. Because that's one of the difficulties with D.I.D. It's not the dealing with being part of a inner, and I'm going to call it inner family. I know that sometimes other people with D.I.D. find that difficult, but for me, I have to think of it as an inner family. So actually that bit is we kind of can deal with that sometimes, but learning to deal with what happened to us is actually very difficult, and you're having to learn to do the two at the same time, and that's what's extraordinarily difficult and demanding. You know, you're trying to juggle learning two things very, very, you know, in 7 years, you know, that all of a sudden everything goes poof like that. So for me, my artwork is wrangling with those things, you know. Whereas for Fee, Fee looks Fee very much, she takes her inspiration from finding really lovely small things, and she will. We would be kept in a cage when we were little, and so we would see things from a very different perspective.
Of course.
And Fee paints what we could see, and there's some really I know this sounds extraordinary, but in the quiet of the night, if you're in the forest floor, then there's some really beautiful things by moonlight, and Fee paints a lot of that. She makes our flashbacks, and she makes what we saw very beautiful, and that's a lot of Fee's inspiration. But the other thing that she does, she has quite a connection with Alfie, and the other thing that she will do is, like, she'll paint fun things that link, that will cheer people up. Like, she's painted a lovely snail. She painted a lovely snail for because Elby really loves is it the snail and the whale? The snail and the whale story. So she painted a snail and a whale. She's kind of loving like that. She sort of holds us together, does things that are kind of small but beautiful. So that's her inspiration. It's very different to mine.
Yeah, and I've seen her work, and it's like you said, it's very fluid and I wouldn't say the childlike, because it is perfectly beautiful and artistic, but it shows the joy and noticing the beauty. Yes, I've noticed that, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is that drives me mad. She does absolutely, she wouldn't listen to anything that, I mean, like I teach, right? And if I ever let her near my class, there would be utter anarchy, because she doesn't listen to anything that I would ever say. So she does, like she she doesn't do any planning whatsoever, which would drive me
so not
insane.
Teacher like, huh?
She's so bad. So yeah, quite. So there's things like that. So she's not she is just, I think that's the thing, when you meet us and you see our work and things like that, then there's just no doubt at that point.
Yeah, you need that insight to understand it, because let's not be harsh on people. It is difficult to understand, probably even for yourself, of how on earth this is happening, and how how to manage it, but you have some experience, so you are getting that understanding from it. People who never heard or met anyone with D.I.D. may find it very difficult, and this is understanding. So that is why conversations like that, seeing exhibitions of all your personalities, are very important, and it needs to be more of it, because you then have evidence in front of your eyes, and I've seen it, the different voices and the different personalities in your art.
And I think, I mean, the other thing is that often, D.I.D. is so demonized in media.
It is. Oh my God.
Which isn't helpful. I mean, at one stage I felt like going around with a t-shirt that sort of like said, I've got D.I.D. and a cellar, I think that's the other thing. People sort of like expect us to have at least one really violent and scary personality. Well, newsflash, I don't. I have got one angry personality, but he wouldn't.
Who doesn't?
He's not angry somewhere. Or if you're not, you need to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly. I would perceive it as a problem. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So so and I think that's exactly it, is that there's with it, there's an awful lot of structure within our inner family. When you see it as a whole, actually there's an enormous amount of structure, and each of us as individuals do stuff. We're fully rounded, and I mean, not all of us. I mean, if generally speaking, the ones of us that are out and chatty and interacting with the world, and that's not all of us, but the ones that are, have very, very full lives. We have different friendships, we have different interests, you know, we do, you know, we have full lives separately. And I think that's one of the things that people very often misunderstand, because one of the first questions off, or one of the first observations that people will sort of say when they do start to talk is, oh yeah, I'm a bit like that, because like when I'm with my friends, I'm completely different to when I'm at work. And yes, yes, I think that's a good start point. I think you always have to meet people where they can start, you know. But it's yes, it is like that, but then it's so much more, because it can be like, do you remember what you did when you were with your friends? You can. Well, I can't, because I'm a different person. You know, it's like, I am a different person. I will wear different clothes. I am not, it's like having the same surname but talking to a different member of the family. So, you know, it's like speaking to my partner and then speaking to me. Why would you expect us to have the same response?
Of
You know,
course.
does that, yeah.
It
But
makes
in the
perfect
media,
sense, yeah.
you know, in the media, they're, you know, they will say that we are murderers, you know, like Split. Oh my goodness.
Oh
You
yeah.
know. Oh Lord. You know.
I think
I
that
watched it
one
in
opened
the
the whole
end.
can of worms for people with DID.
Say again.
That movie Split opened the can of worms for everybody with DID.
It really did, and I didn't watch it for a long time actually, because I was just like, oh, you know, that's so terrible, you know. And then I did, because I thought it was really important to watch something that I was saying such terrible things about. And actually, you know, apart from the fact that he was a, you know, murdering idiot, actually there were some things that they got right.
Yeah.
There were. And you know, I really do think it's really important to meet people where they can understand you. And there were some things that they got right in that movie, but there was so much that they got wrong too. You know, obviously I am not a murdering idiot. I don't have people in my cellar, but I do have multiple personalities. I do wear different clothes. You would not recognize one of us from the other one. You know, I do speak differently. I do have different handwriting. You know, I do paint differently. You know, so from that point of view, there were things that were right, but there were things that were very wrong too. You know, so and it is difficult, because you know, for quite a while, the first thing that people would say was, "What, like Split?"
Yeah. Well, this is what media does, and you know, unless there is someone in the media to understand that we need a positive portrayal of mental illnesses, we will have those moments that we want to punch someone, because not everybody with DID is a murderer or rapist, right? So
but
yeah, but
I think it should empower all of us who are creative, because look at, you know, if a movie can get everybody saying to you, you know, what, like D.I.D, you know, what, like Split, then, you know, artwork can be spoken about. You know, creative people are powerful. You can use your creative voice powerfully, and I think that's the really important message to take away. You know, if you use your voice, you know, creatively, it's really powerful, and it can get in places where you know, stamping your feet and yelling won't necessarily get you.
I had exactly that reaction to some of my artwork, that people were saying, well, you know what, that I now can sort of understand how it feels, you know. That is why I think art is a powerful tool to raise awareness, because it's like you said, first of all, it's our first language, because every child is creative. Every child starts from drawing and scribbling, right? Before we write, before we talk properly, we use art and expressive ways to communicate with the world. So yeah, I believe that we artists have a mission to, you know, to bring that awareness. But I wanted to touch on something, because you mentioned, would you say that you are a success story, maybe in making, because I know you are still in therapy, but I can, you know, more I know you, I can see you have a lovely family, you have lovely students, you teach, you work, you are functioning in the society. So, you know, despite the D.I.D, you are a success story, aren't you?
I don't know. Do you know, I am extraordinarily fortunate. I have been put in an extraordinarily fortunate position right from that first flashback. I was able to, you know, my sister didn't have anybody to say to her, you're not going completely mad. This happened. You know, when I phoned her up, she was able to say, you're not going mad. This is what's happening to you. Not only that, I had a really good friend who made it her business to go, no, you aren't going mad. This is what's happening to your brain. And actually, let's piece this together. And I had all kinds of support. And then after that, in an extraordinary twist of fate, I was able to get a therapist that is just extraordinary. And I've managed to stay with that same therapist for 7 years, and will do forever, for goodness sake. You know, on top of that, I have got a support network of people for Alfie, for Elby, for you know, for Fee. I have it, you know, and we have a family. It's nobody can do it on their own, and even I'm learning that, and I'm like the most, no, I shall do it on my own sort of person. It's taken me a very long time to learn that, you know, very long time, but nobody can do anything on their own, you know. So I feel a really strong sense of responsibility to continue doing essentially what I love. Actually, I feel just enormously grateful. That's what I feel, is grateful. You know, Fee put a gratitude book on our desk, and she's forcing us all to put in there, you know, something that we're grateful for every day, kind of thing. And actually, that's fairly straightforward, because, you know, we are, you know, other people do not get the help with D.I.D. Other people do not get the help that I have got, and that's the point, you know. And I sort of like feel, actually, I feel really responsible for making sure that people are aware, you know. People with D.I.D. are misdiagnosed as a, you know, if they go into the NHS, they are misdiagnosed, hospitalized, medicalized. They do not get the talk therapy that they're supposed to get. Trauma related illnesses are not dealt with. And, you know, these are the things that people need to be made aware of. Ritual abuse is just not on the table for conversation, you know. And these are the things that people absolutely, and I've been put in a position because people have supported and loved me. So, you know, I can't, you know, you're either, you know, I'm very, very fortunate, and I need to speak up as a consequence of that.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, and it proves another point of my experience and my advocacy, that with the proper support, you can make it. You know,
Yes.
you need a tribe to belong to be listened by, and thanks to that, you will thrive. You will have moments of difficulties, of course, we all do, but the support is a crucial aspect. And we have a question. Richard is asking, where do you get the help? Is it the same with PTSD?
The help, right, okay. So I we found a local therapist, you know, but you need to make sure that you're getting an accredited therapist, a proper accredited therapist. So in actual fact, it was found for me. It was found for me, and I was taken there shouting and screaming. Actually, I was virtually in the footwell, let's be honest, screaming that I didn't want to go. I was actually dragged, and I was very rude and uncooperative when I first went. There are an awful lot of therapists who don't deal with it brilliantly, so make sure it's you go to a group, as in terms of a therapy, established a therapy center, so that they can actually assess you and put you with a good therapist that will suit you, so that you don't just end up in somebody's shed at the bottom of the garden having a chat.
Yeah.
Is that good advice, I think?
Yeah, well, I think that we don't have more information from Richard, but yeah, it's about finding, because it's like sometimes people are angry that I dare to compare certain aspects of mental health to very day-to-day life. But I do. It's the same like having a hairdresser, right?
Yeah.
There are plenty good hairdressers on this globe, but for some reason they don't seem to get it of what you want, how to style your hair to be good. Yeah. And the same with a therapist. We are all human. We have different threats. We have different personalities. We have different likes and dislikes and our beliefs. And you need to just find the one that somehow you feel at home with.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to write your questions down before you go in, and know that you're prepared to, and before you phone up, make sure you know what you need, and that you get the right answers. There were some questions that I had that if I didn't get the right answer, even with Joe, I was perfectly prepared to walk out of the room. If I didn't have I needed to feel safe. Yeah. That's the thing. You need to, with PTSD, it's a huge and really brave step to go and see a therapist, and it's an absolutely essential step. So well done if you're thinking about going to see a therapist. Go, because it's essential. But make sure that you feel safe. That's the most important thing. You'll feel wobbly to start with. You will. Of course.
And then you think
and that's okay.
And then you think makes us wobble, right? If you never had therapy, it is
feel the fear and do it anyway. I mean, how many times have I said that to myself?
Yeah, and that actually links with the comment. I believe the warriors need to talk more about impact of living in fear. And yes, there is always something that we fear, like going to therapy. It's about, well, you open up yourself. You are talking to them about things that you never ever spoken about. It's petrifying.
Listen, fear, you're absolutely right. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've written about fear. Fear is, it's easy, isn't it, to sit here now and talk openly and confidently, and but I have sat at this desk, I have I struggle with suicidal thoughts. Suicide is something that personally might fear in the others, maybe not, but it's something that is a problem for me. Fear is often is not far away, but you know what, I faced it off. Every time it's come to me, I have faced off fear, and it might sound right now like I'm saying that in a glib way, and that's why I sort of said, actually, it's not pain. It's not pain, because it's fear that you're facing, and it's, I find it quite a difficult thing to put words to. It feels like you're sitting at the bottom of the most enormous wall, and that you will never get over it, because fear is all tied up with, for me, humiliation, largely with human. They're base, guttural, awful things. But I have never faced up to it. I have never faced up to it and lost. It's always hot air. It never exists. It's a joke. It's nothing. Fear is actually when you stand up to it, you know. And just recently I'm learning that actually sometimes if you reach out to somebody, they will help you face that fear. And it's easier if you ask somebody to help you face that fear with you, you know. That's a really humbling lesson to learn, and is difficult, but absolutely fear is such a big part of dealing with mental health. And you're right, we don't talk about it enough. But equally, you know, it's the opposite of love. It's and if you put love centrally in your life, I think that makes that puts fear into perspective, because you can stand up to anything. You can be brave, you can be strong, you can be empowered. And I promise you that fear, and I'm saying this and I'm trying to convince myself as well, because I know fear will come back round in my life again. It always does. It never will go away completely. But every time you stand up to it, it always turns out to be mist. It's a nothing. That you make it into something awful. But actually, when you finally face that thing, it isn't. You know, like when I started dealing with Albie, who is very small, you have personalities that can be very young. Now, for me, the thought of having a small personality was utterly humiliating, because allowing her to be meant that this body was going to be you know, a 5-6-year-old, behave like a 5-6-year-old. And the humiliation of that, to me, that I would have no control over, the humiliation was just so complete. I was on the floor in I can't tell you how many times I was found on the floor drunk in this house. I just could not deal with it. I couldn't cope with it. It was just utterly awful. I felt like the entire world was laughing at me. I just absolutely couldn't deal with it, you know. But and it was all to do with fear. It was horrendous. It was just the most horrendous time. I can't tell you, for months, it was the most horrendous time, and it was all to do with fear. And you know, eventually, it, you know, I had no control over it. Albie was going to be Albie, whether I wanted it or not. It was a train ride. There were, you know, that was getting faster and faster and faster. There wasn't anything I could do about it, and I had to face. You know, Joe invited Albie to our session, and there was nothing I could do about it. Albie was going to be there. It was just horrendous. But facing that fear, actually, you know, Albie is the most joyful thing in our lives. She, you know, we don't just remember childhood. We know how wonderful it is to actually enjoy what bubbles are like. We enjoy that. You know, she is a treasure to us.
Indeed.
She absolutely is.
Yeah,
So
well,
facing fears, you know,
I think
facing
that by
fears really,
by
you know,
acknowledging Albie, you are cherishing the child, that we should cherish our inner child, no matter
absolutely.
how old are we. So I'm
Absolutely.
very happy that Albie is around.
Yes, absolutely. So are we, absolutely. But the terror prior to that was awful.
I can imagine, yeah. Dave asks, does each of you know intuitively who did what? For example, leaving the book on the desk. Did all of you know who did that, and how did you know? Very complex question.
I can't speak for everybody with D.I.D on this one, because it's very, very individual to each person's experience. Because people like Kim Noble, for instance, she has complete amnesia between people. For me, sometimes, not always. So like, for instance, my last birthday, I got a birthday card from you know, like Moonpig or something. That was from Albie and Alfie. That was written from Albie and Alfie, and I had no clue. I genuinely had absolutely no clue and it was kind of like, oh my God, that was, and there are things like, there are things that happen, like Fee will go shopping. I won't have a clue what's in the bag when I get home. And there's probably quite a lot of things actually that we're very, very routine so that we manage our lives, so that we can manage. So we have a lot of, there's a lot of things that we do to make sure that we manage, we keep the Newton's cradle swinging kind of thing. But sometimes it's like an echo down the other end of a tunnel, so we kind of like get an idea, and a lot of our therapy has elements in it, to try and help manage, and we have a lot of, like we have a diary that we will write notes in so that the other one can pick it up and know what the other one's done, so we don't have complete amnesia all the time. And no, we don't know intuitively what the other person's done. But sometimes, not always. It's quite mixed, is the honest answer to that. And it's different between different ones of us. So I will feel in my gut what Elby, much more in line with Elby, and Joe tells me that the LB will sometimes be preoccupied about the same subjects that I'm preoccupied by, which I didn't know. And Fee and Alfie, I think, are a bit more alike in character, for instance, but whether they know what each other are doing, obviously I couldn't tell you. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, sometimes there is and sometimes not, but we do a lot to keep ourselves on track. So how much is that and how much is, us knowing? I'm not sure.
Yeah, like you said, you are using, I think it does that, yeah, to a certain degree, yes, because you develop strategies to make sure that you are aware of what has been done or what happened when you are Jack, when you are Alfie, when whoever comes to light. My God, I could talk to you for hours and hours, but our airtime is about to finish. Yeah, it's like it flew by. But there is something that I do for each of my guests, and I do it very intuitively. So I approach a piece of paper without any direction, just thinking about my guests, about this, what I know about them, or what I read about them, and I just create a piece. And that initiative came about to just ensure that I give back, because mental health warriors are run by donations, and I wanted to do something to give back to that lovely initiative. So I paint a piece for each of my guests, and I offer it for them to purchase at whatever price. I don't mind how little it is, and 20% of it goes to mental health warriors to help them run the initiative. And I painted something for you. Would you like to see it? Of course, I will send you the digital copy to see the details better, because of course it is not as easy. But this is it.
That is so beautiful.
It's a figure in a beautiful leaf, and there are some faces coming out. And yeah, it was, I think, that the beauty of you and all your personalities need to be celebrated.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I think that a person with D.I.D, person like you, needs to be cherished, for if nothing more, for one big reason, that you bring beauty to that world as few people would, because of your personalities. You have different, artistic voices. You make that world more beautiful, more rich in art. And for that reason, you deserve all the applause that you can get.
Oh, you're so lovely. I feel humble. We walk together, don't we? I think
Yeah,
that's a really important thing to always remember.
exactly.
That all of us walk together, and hand in
Indeed,
hand with this.
indeed. And, it's important to find your tribe, people, to have proper support. Just to sum up what we talked about, to use artistic outlets to let things out. And you don't need to paint Mona Lisa, I promise. You can just scribble around to get your emotions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Get your pencils and your crayons around you, and just allow yourself to be. Absolutely.
And always remember about Albi. If you can find that, that power to express yourself, think about your inner child, and just have fun, have some playtime.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Right there.
Okay, so before we wrap up, where people can find you, see your work, or reach out if they want to?
Well, I've got a website, beckynewellart.co.uk. I don't know how to think about it. I'm really useless on knowing all of these things. So so you can go to my website. You can see me on Instagram. Oh, are you able to put these up?
Yes, I will.
Because
Yeah,
I'm really, really rubbish at these. I'm just dashing onto Instagram now to find my thingy. Yeah, which is Becky Newell Arts. Do you say at or hashtag? I don't know. So you can go on Instagram. That's probably my most active thing. And Saatchi as well. If you look for the Becky Newell Collective, you'll find me on Saatchi as well.
that's brilliant. And I encourage you, people, to see that lovely work. And just last question, I can't resist. Last question. Any exhibition coming up, because I so want to be at it?
I haven't got one at the moment, but I've got about 2 exhibitions worth of work. So I have got some projects in the pipeline actually currently, which is going to take a little bit of time, but they're more media based. So yeah, we've got big heavy projects in the pipeline, but yeah, I will let you know as soon as an exhibition comes out.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for speaking to me and opening up. And it's such an important mental health issue that needs to be spoken about more,
Really is.
because, like we said, people need to stop living in fear. And imagine that people with D.I.D have few personalities in one body living in fear.
Yeah.
And this is unacceptable.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely it is. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak about dissociative identity disorder and ritual abuse. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. And I think you will be back at my show at some point.
Oh, I really hope so. That'd be great.
I have an urge to speak more and talk more.
Well, we've got plenty to talk about.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you everyone for watching us live, and you can also rewatch the program. So thank you to those who will watch the rewatch. And Art My Medicine will be back in 2 weeks' time with another lovely guest. And please do give Becky Collective a follow, because the art is so awesome. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.